I want to run through just what the 10 chapters in my Do Ask, Do Tell book are very quickly. The first one is a general introduction, The Winding Road Toward Liberty. This was written right a few months after the 9/11 attacks, and so that's a pervading theme throughout the book. The second chapter is about launching a Bill of Rights 2, which has to do with substantive due process, which I talked about in the other video. It also talks about how you can amend the Constitution, or whether there are other ways to explicitly secure some of these ideas that we could call a Bill of Rights 2, so once and for all know what our individual rights are. Chapter 3 has to do with terrorism and individual rights, and the fact that sometimes external threats really do compromise our individual liberty, with 9/11 being the main example. Of course, we all know that since then there have been other enemies besides the enemy in 9/11. In our own country, there are serious enemies, and then of course we know communism and fascism have both been coming back. I'm not going to name names in this video, but I think we know what they are. Then there's a chapter on whether or not the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy for gays in the military could be constitutional. We know now that it was repealed in 2011, but that when this book was written, it was still in effect. And it is also the ban on trans and gender individuals was largely lifted by Biden when he took office. Then chapter 5 is our new debate on national service and the draft. One interesting thing is that you have to register for selective service according to birth, gender, or sex assigned at birth, that is. And a lot of people don't seem to know that. Then the 6th chapter is a temperate view of gay conservatism. Is that an oxymoron? And I sort of talk about how the entire idea of sexual orientation and now gender ideology, which kind of runs in parallel to it today, how it sort of interferes with a sense of purity that a lot of people want, so that they can more easily do the things that they can believe in what they're doing when they raise a family, that it matters as much as it does. That has to do with the fact that other people will play by the same rules they do. Chapter 7 is Narcissism, Affiliation and Polarity. That talks about the polarity theory of the Paul Rosenfels community back from the 1970s, and what that does is allows people to have enormous range of personality types irrespective of biological sex. You don't need to even talk about what your biological sex is. It just is what it is, and you leave it alone. So that's very interesting. Although narcissism itself is a very important topic too. Then chapter 8 is about how the information technology job market changed so much after 2000, and then again after 9/11, how the mainframe market and the whole culture of work that it didn't start, how that kind of broke down. Chapter 9 is about freedom, self-publishing, ethical and legal trends, about your freedom of reach that any individual could have, that we've discovered with self-publishing after the internet, and particularly after Section 230 was passed in the late 90s. It became possible for anybody to make themselves a celebrity online, although that's changing now. It's becoming harder again. And then chapter 10 is COPA, the Child Online Protection Act of 1998, which tried to replace the censorship sections of the Communications Decency Act, which was struck down in 1997. That could have seriously interfered with the internet, but it went to the Supreme Court a couple times, but it was struck down in 2007. And it's not to be confused with COPPA, which is the Child Online Privacy and Protection Act, which is a totally different thing that became controversial in 2019. Here's the cover of the book again, and thank you.